This is Alex Stam, technical artist, and you're listening to Ingress Insights.
Additional intel available.
Hello agents, and welcome to episode 100 of the Ingress Insights podcast. This week we were going over the final plus Theta items as well as the plus Delta series that's now been announced. We've got a few more details for, and also discussing the app update we've had for Ingress and the missions that have now been fixed. You will also have seen that there's a special interview coming up in this episode with Alex, a technical artist who previously worked on Ingress, who wrote a dev diary that I'll go through as well before the interview. That'll be at the end of the podcast, so if you do want to skip right there, please do go ahead. But first of all, I'll get into the anomaly-related news.
What's up? This is Smooth Guy O, and you listen to the Ingress Insight podcast.
We are now in the last few days of the plus Theta Anomaly series, so if you are running short, you can still get 60 plus Theta tokens a day until the end of the month. You can also pick up the plus Theta badges that are available for this season. They all last until the 30th of June, so day after this podcast. If you want, you can also pick up the plus Theta premium battle pass thing that they do. You won't get all the items straight away. It'll just be whatever level you've unlocked to. For most people, if you've not attended an anomaly, you'll be about 8,000, 9,000 points if you've been doing a few other bits. So whilst you won't get the top price in that, you can at least get some extra items if you think it's worth the 30,800 CMU. But as I said, we are wrapping up plus Theta and we're now moving into plus Delta that we've got details for, so I'll go through those next. On the 24th of June, the Ingress team updated the news page with the Plus Delta Anomaly Season overview, and it mentions from July to September, agents can take part in the Plus Delta Anomaly Season, competing across multiple events to earn the most season points for their faction. In addition, by taking part in some of these events, agents will be able to earn the 3-tiered Plus Data Agent Profile Medal. The Plus Delta medal is a 3-tiered medal, so Bronze is unlocked at 3,000 plus Delta tokens, Silver is unlocked at 8,000 plus Delta tokens, and Gold is unlocked at 15,000 plus Delta tokens. Agents may earn the plus Delta medal by accumulating plus Delta tokens through the following means. So we've got daily bounties and bounty op from the 1st of July to the 19th of September. So it'll stop being plus Theta tokens to turn into plus Delta tokens. You'll earn 10 plus Delta tokens by completing each daily research bounty, and earn 10 plus Delta tokens by reaching each daily bounty research milestone. So that's 2 completed, 4 completed, and then earn up to 3,000 plus Delta tokens from the plus Delta bounty op. That's the one running, as I said, from the 1st of July to the 19th of September. There are 2 global campaigns as well, so you can earn up to 5,000 plus Delta tokens from plus Delta global campaign Rezo, and earn up to 5,000 plus Delta tokens from plus Delta global campaign Field. Then finally, you can also earn up to 5,000 plus Delta tokens from attending an anomaly campaign at a plus Delta anomaly event site. A plus Delta token agent stat will be added to your profile for the duration of the plus Delta anomaly season to help you monitor your individual progress. And they've got the event schedule there as well. So the plus Delta anomaly season, which will take place during the months of July or September, going first of all, the plus Delta bounty op is a global op that runs from the 1st of July 2025 at 12 a.m. local time to 19th September 2025 at 11:59 p.m. local time. And there you need to complete a variety of bounties delivered via dispatch. 300 season points will be distributed based on the total daily bounties claimed by each faction's members, rounded to 1 decimal place. If you complete the 5 bounties in the campaign, you can claim up to 3,000 plus Delta tokens. So I imagine similar to the plus Theta one, where you can redo it a few times and get 3,000 plus Delta tokens overall. Next up is the plus Delta global campaign Resonator, I assume. It's again a global campaign running from the 19th of July 2025 at 12 a.m. local time to the 3rd of August 11:59 p.m. local time. Again, you're completing a variety of bounties delivered via dispatch, and there's 300 season points up for grabs as well. They don't detail it as much as the daily bounties, but I assume it's the same with the split. There's to complete the 7 bounties in the campaign to claim up to 1,000 plus Delta tokens. Restart the campaign up to 4 additional times to earn more plus Delta tokens. So this is the one that I was actually thinking of, where you restart it and get it through on there. Then we have another global campaign, so that's the plus Delta global campaign Field, and that goes from the 30th of August 2025 to the 14th of September 11:59 p.m. local time. And for that, again, it's complete a variety of bounties delivered via dispatch. 300 season points, again split, I'd assume, in a similar way. It's completing the 7 bounties in the campaign to be able to claim up to 1,000 plus Delta tokens, and restarting the campaign up to 4 additional times to claim more plus delta tokens. It's worth highlighting here there are no shard skirmishes, beacon skirmishes, shard singulars, anything like that for plus delta. So we end it with the anomalies. So the weekend of the 16th of August, you've got Malacca, Malaysia, and Portland, Oregon, USA. The weekend of the 23rd of August, there's Gothenburg, Sweden, and Quebec City in Canada. And then finally, the weekend of the 20th of September 2025, there's one in Denpasar, Bali, Indonesia, and one in Cambridge in the United Kingdom. For those who take part in multiple score-based competitive operations such as Urban Ops, Stealth Ops, the Anomaly campaign, Portal Battles, and Shard operations, Urban and Stealth Ops may vary site to site, and it's 300 season points per site there. On-site agents will also be issued a series of site bounties during the designated battle period. Hack ones to complete the first bounty and claim 3,000 plus Delta tokens. Complete the remaining 6 bounties and claim an additional 2,000 plus Delta tokens. Final outcome of the plus Delta anomaly season will be based on the total season score accrued by each faction from all of the above components, and the faction with the higher final score will claim the season. There are some port instability details, but I'll go through those a bit closer to the time because that's during the anomalies and they're not for a little while. I will highlight, however, there are badges available in the in-game store. So from the 4th of July at 12 a.m. UTC to 29th September 11:59 p.m. UTC, you can get the Plus Delta Supporter Medal Series. So I assume there's a regular one and a core one. All these badges are and campaigns are 30,800 CMU each. From the 18th of July, 11 a.m. UTC to the 4th of August, 11 a.m. UTC, you can also buy 2 premium campaigns, so Rezo Builder and Rezo Attacker. Those are 2 separate premium campaigns. From the 25th of July, 12 a.m. UTC to 29th September, 11:59 p.m. UTC, you can get the Hank Johnson 2025 Medal Series. So I assume they're saying series, there'll be a neutral one and a faction one. And you can also get the Hank Johnson 2017 medals. That's presumably 3 Hank medals there at least, being 30,800 CMU. The 15th of August, 12 a.m. UTC to 29th September, 11:59 p.m. UTC, the Asmarty 2025 medal series are available. So I'd assume again a neutral one and a faction one. From the 29th of August, 11 a.m. UTC to the 15th September, 11 a.m. UTC, there's a Field Builder premium campaign, a 40 mil plus builder premium campaign, and a Field Attacker premium campaign, all separate premium campaigns. You could buy them all. Again, 30,800 CMU. We don't know what's in them, what's involved. Then finally, from the 5th of September, 12 a.m. UTC to the 29th of September, 11:59 p.m. UTC, there's a Carrie Campbell 2025 Medal Series, presumably again neutral faction. And from the archive, the Carrie Campbell 2018 badge, again, 30,800 CMU each. There are links in Ingress's post about the global campaigns, but they don't go anywhere yet. They just say check back later. Hopefully we'll have more details as we get closer to the time, because we've got the first global campaign coming up in a couple of weeks, and obviously the bounty op starting from the 1st of July, which is not too far away. But that's all the details we've got really for Plus Delta at the moment. Hopefully there'll be more in the coming week. I just want to talk a bit more about the Plus Delta stuff before we move into general Ingress news. So if you are counting, that gives us at least 10 medals for 30,800 CMU each, as well as 5 premium campaigns, where last time we only had 1 premium campaign. Again, all 30,800 CMU each. If you buy all of them, you're going to be spending a lot on Ingress, and we don't even know what's in them yet and how they'll look. I assume the neutral badges will look like the pink and yellow two-face badges we've seen in the last campaign, but maybe they'll change them for Plus Delta. I don't think so, because they've got that kind of design nailed down now. Again, whether the Field Builder 40 mil plus builder, Field Attacker, premium campaigns, things like that are going to be worth it. I don't know. I don't know what would make it worth it to get the 30,800 CMU. The Plus Data Battle Pass certainly wasn't it. I'd like to see some exclusives if you get that. So maybe not a medal, because it would feel a bit weird to do the premium campaign and then get a medal from it. But something like an avatar or a beacon that's tied to that would be a cool thing to have. But we'll have to wait and see. It's a lot that Ingress is asking for this time. Obviously, you don't have to buy any of it, but people are thinking probably about similar tickets in Pokemon Go when that increased a lot, and there's now 3 or 4 tickets every event. We've got here 5 premium tickets for this quarter, which is a lot when we had none before, 1 last season, and now I've leapt straight up to 5. So I wonder how many we'll get for the next season as well. Anyway, that's my thoughts on that. So I'll now move into the Ingress news.
This is Shimon, former community manager for the Witcher Monster Slayer, and you're listening to Ingress Insights.
The Ingress app had an update this week, so we got an update on the 25th of June, and they said that we skipped the 2.168.1 release and jumped straight to 2.169.1. Nice. This release includes bug fixes displaying the top header on the map screen correctly and support for upcoming dispatch campaigns, which we just mentioned a load of. It's not listed, but agents have reported the notification dot on the dispatch icon for completed premium bounties is now hidden if you've not brought the premium upgrade for the campaign. So there was a little orange dot hanging around that was kind of like buy me to get rid of the dot. It's now gone off, so hopefully we won't have that issue for the Plus Delta campaign either. Brian Rose also shared an update on Twitter this week about missions. So he said, I jumped into the mission review queue to help out, and I approved a banner tonight. Someone's been trying to get approved for more than a year. It has been educational to get more hands-on since our spin out. Thank you for your patience while we review our processes. The most common reason I've seen for a mission rejection is putting a single letter or character in a mission badge, and we should make this rule more clear. Just to note, it is mentioned in the mission authoring FAQs that you shouldn't do that. Obviously, it wasn't implemented previously, so you will see some old banners that have that. He also said the next most common reason for rejection is when reverse image lookup identifies a problematic match, like an image we don't know if you own or have the owner's permission to upload onto our service. This isn't always obvious or consistent, unfortunately. Brian also confirmed on Reddit after this was posted there that the mission acceptance rejection email should now be working properly. There were issues with agents getting nothing basically when they were getting their missions done. So if you're the agent that does loads of missions, you can now do those. You should hopefully get a quicker turnaround time. Finally, for Ingress news, there's two little tidbits that don't really affect Ingress, but do kind of mention it on there. So I want to include these at the end. First of all, the German book, which translates to Video Games 50 Key Titles, released last month, and it's got a perspective on video games. And Ingress is included on pages 184 to 191. The Ingress update English Extra channel have translated the summary from the first page of there. It says, unlike typical computer games, Ingress is not played indoors in isolation or purely on a screen. It questions ideas like digital disembodiment, social isolation, and the separation between play and everyday life, the magic circle. As a location-based game, Ingress requires players to physically move in the real world using GPS tracking to interact with the game. This physical engagement sets it apart from stationary gaming. While Pokemon Go from 2016 is better known, Ingress is featured in the book as its predecessor and the better game because it laid the groundwork for this genre. I will include a link where you can pick up the book if you want to do that. You can pick it up if you can obviously read German. It's €39, so I'll include the link there and you can read that at your convenience. Unfortunately, I don't know German. I'm doing Japanese lessons still on Duolingo, getting a little more advanced, but not quite there yet. Maybe I'll switch to German after I do Japanese. Then the final thing is not really Ingress related, but I want to mention it here. So if you've registered on the Niantic Lightship platform, you'll have got an email about the depreciation of Maps SDK for Unity. So they note that they're obviously getting rid of it, and with Niantic's game division now operating under Scopely, a separate company, Niantic Spatial has made the decision to sunset the Maps SDK for Unity. So there'll be no further updates to the Maps SDK for Unity. Support ends on July 2025, so they no longer respond to new support requests. Documentation and sample code were removed in August 2025, as well as the GitHub repository. The SDK will stop working after October 2025 when the old endpoints referencing Niantic Labs are shut down. It does suggest to use other services like Mapbox, which I know Jurassic World Live uses, so for their map and their tiles. Doesn't change anything for Ingress, it's just an internal thing that they were doing where developers could get it and see the details there. So nothing changes for Ingress. I just wanted to mention if you've seen the email, if you registered for Lightship and then you panic, don't worry, basically. That's about all I've got for Ingress. I just wanted to mention again this week there's no Recon related news. I'm not covering Wayfair related news because it's no longer impacting Ingress. However, I would say to keep building the queue, keep doing your edits to things that need an edit, keep adding new photos, things that need new photos. keep submitting new portals, because the quicker we get a backlog, the quicker I think we'll be able to review on Recon, which is what people want to do to get new portals added to the game and get things corrected. Before I get on to Alex's interview, I just want to read through his dev diary that he wrote, and then I'll get you right into that. You might remember that when the Ingress community forums closed down, the team put a news post up that promised we would get like community chats and dev diaries, and we got one dev diary that was published in the end of 2024 by Alex, who we'll hear from shortly, and just titled Dev Diary Scanner Rendering Update. And it says, my name is Alex, and I'm a technical artist on Ingress, which is a role that combines skills across engineering, art, and design. My domain is anything graphics related, but that doesn't always mean making pretty visuals. My focus is more on optimizing the scanner for speed and performance. Ingress runs on Unity engine. If you're a game dev using Unity, you might know about the latest graphics change to the game engine, which requires games to update their universal render pipeline. In the latest update to scanner version at 2.156.1, we updated our graphics system to prepare for these upcoming Unity requirements and use this opportunity to focus on the following goals: optimize for agents' interaction speed, improve scanner performance and stability, reduce overall battery usage on newer devices. To accomplish this, the team updated how objects on the scanner are lit to reduce overhead. Several items need to be rewritten, including the drone and their agent avatars like Aerodyne. Some items will look slightly different than they did previously, but we made the intentional choice to optimize in order to increase speed for more agents across more devices. Instead of relying on the lighting model, we wrote new shaders to achieve a similar look. For the graphics enthusiasts there is a fun thread about another game that used similar rendering techniques but in a different way, and you see screenshots there of before and after how the drone looked. What does fixing graphics bugs look like under the hood? Pink dress, lots of pink. When it comes to pixels, things like materials, shaders, textures, and animation what control pixel behavior on screen. When references are broken, it turns everything pink. Additionally, graphics lag happens when the graphics processing unit GPU is unable to process the incoming frames at the device's frame rate. This type of lag might be experienced when there are heightened volumes of agent activity, like during Ingress Anomalies. There are lots of techniques we can do to increase performance gains in graphics. Some examples are made into the scanner. Used object pooling on Machinor portals to enhance map performance. Moved the lighting model as described above. Updated the rendering asset to disable things like shadows, which aren't needed for Ingress but are sometimes enabled by default in Unity. Greatly reduced post-processing. Removed it from overclock entirely, which should have minimal impact to look. Hopefully this fixes the thin glyph issue experienced by some Android players, but if you still experience the issue, please make an in-scanner bug report and include screenshots. We also optimize, reduce, and remove certificate animations or speed up the scanner app startup time, as well as many scanner actions. For example, comparing 2.156.1 to our previous benchmarks across a sampling of Android and iOS devices, we now see the following improvements. Average scanner startup time from cold start is 2.3 seconds faster. Average drone move time is 1.0 seconds faster. Average agent profile open time is 0.5 seconds faster. Native refresh rate is the default standard with URP. Instead of being locked into 30 FPS, the frame rate is whatever the natural rate is of the device. Is that good or bad? It depends. Rendering at native refresh rate for the device is generally best for battery life. On an iPhone, for example, we better default to native frame rate to reduce overhead with graphic calls between Unity and Metal, Apple's graphics API. Basically, we should let Metal handle the frame rate natively instead of doing extra work for Unity to throttle the frame rate to 30 FPS, thus reducing Unity calls overhead. What does all this mean? We upgrade our graphics engine, which usually happens at the start of a game product lifecycle, not the middle. It certainly isn't a minor undertaking. It means we're investing in the future of Ingress, and Ingress is here to stay long term. Will it be bug-free? We can't promise perfection. The reality of Ingress is we are not a large dev team, probably smaller than you think. However, I hope the scanner feels snappier with this upgrade, and your Ingress plays all the better for it. Cheers, agents, Alex. As I said, I wanted to go through that before we then get into the interview, and Alex will go through various things. He does offer a disclaimer at the start of the interview that everything he says is just his opinion, doesn't represent Niantic or anything like that. So it's not words from Niantic, it's words from Alex, who previously worked at Niantic. So that's all I've got really for other news, so I'll get you now into the interview. Hello, agents, and welcome to a special section of the Ingress Insights podcast. In this week's episode, we've got an interview with Alex, who was a technical artist on Ingress, responsible for a wide variety of features we'll use to this day. So I'll pass over to Alex to introduce himself firstly.
Yeah. Hey, everybody. My name is Alex Stam. I'm a former technical artist on Ingress, where I worked on Ingress for about 3 years. And before I say anything else, I will say, Hello, this is my opinion and my experience alone. This does not reflect the opinions of Niantic Labs, Niantic Spatial, or Scopely. Okay, let's have some fun.
So that's good. And then obviously most people know your name from the dev diary that was published on the Ingress news site. So when the forums closed a little while ago now, the Ingress team promised there'd be some updates, some dev diaries and things like that we'd see. So far we've had one from yourself. So I just wondered how that came about from your side, whether you were notified you will be doing this in future, whether it could be a certain subject, and how it kind of all came about.
Sure. I mean, so I guess I should, before we get to the dev diary, I probably should explain what technical art does, because if you go back and read that dev diary, it's somewhat technical. And my attempt for that was to sort of like show players like what does like technical art kind of do? It's very graphics intensive. So what is a technical artist? So that's someone who does optimization, UI, VFX, updating the art, and basically a lot of rapid prototyping, that kind of thing. And so I kind of have like a little bit of touch in engineering, a little bit of touch in art, a little bit of touch in design. And so when it came to that dev diary, there's kind of two things on my mind. One was the technical side of things. This was a feature that I kind of was the feature lead, and with another developer outside the Ingress team, the kind of the two of us were able to do that entire feature, which is uh, very pixel heavy. As a graphics person, I had so much fun with it personally. But the second reason would be like, just starting to engage with the players and being part of the community. Like, I just want to connect more, and my voice as a developer is like a way to sort of, like give players like an insight on like why we might be doing certain things. So I'll tell you where it came about, because I wanted to plan more dev diaries. I love that idea of like bringing players in onto like the development process. It's, in my opinion, a, especially a community-based game, because if community is the most important aspect of this game, then like let's engage with each other in a way that is going to be really helpful for the game as overall. And so for that dev diary, though, the real reason was so, all right, I will say Ingress a little bit of a small team. We will get into that a little bit later, but because it was kind of just me and there's some other features to work on as well, I really had to pick and choose how pixel perfect I wanted this upgrade to be. And if you go back and read the dev diary, you'll see like it was sort of this unavoidable graphics upgrade that Unity engine had to do. And so basically we had to undergo it. And my perception was I want to not only just like do the bare minimum, but like let's also do things that improve the player experience. So things like let's make the drone animation twice as fast, or like even clicking into a portal. Like there was some like, I don't know, 0.25 second delay or something. And it's like, why is that there? And so like because those are the actions they don't really think about, but those were actually the things that made the game kind of feel sluggish when in fact it's not. It's actually very like,
Mhm.
you know, and so to me, as like the UI UX perspective in tech art, that's that design side, is seeing like, okay, how does this feel for the player? It felt sluggish to me going into drone originally. And so there are reasons why like we can't do things instantly, and those things are unavoidable in some ways. But those things that are perceptual um, are things also I could do with this upgrade. And so, yeah, I just wanted to bring the players along. The thing that was different pixel wise was the drones. Drones do look different with this upgrade ever so slightly. But wouldn't you know it, the Aerodyne avatar has the same kind of like shader. So it's like kind of the
Okay.
same definition for like how it should look. And I was like, wait a minute, but people paid for the Aerodyne. And if it looks a little bit worse ever so slightly, I don't want that to happen. And so I did my best. And in fact, just in terms of like the upgrade, that was the most difficult shader. Technical reasons, I had to kind of rewrite the whole thing. And and so I wanted to be like, hey, like this is why things are different. Please don't be mad at me. Also, I want to engage with you, but I hope it looks okay. So it's kind of like the personal and the the community drive all in one, I would say.
Um, did you see the reaction to the dev diary after you posted it? See the people
Yeah,
talking about it and
absolutely. I That's why I wanted to do more, because I just felt like people were engaging and asking questions. Because what happened as a result was like were people who had reached out to me on like Twitter or Telegram, and they're like, "Hey, like I don't know if this was there before or not, but like I haven't really paid attention to the graphics specifically on this little thing. Wait a minute, like has that been broken for 4 years, or is that something that broke last year?" And for me, as like a graphics visual person, I really like the focus that kind of had on, the kind of nitty-gritty details that pixels make up the stuff on the scanner.
and obviously you mentioned you noticed the sluggish kind of bits yourself, so you obviously play Ingress. Are there any of the Niantic, I guess now, Scopely games you play as well, or is it just Ingress?
Yeah. Well, that's the thing. If it's just Ingress, do I even play a Niantic game? But like to be honest, so here's my scope of play. I did play Pokemon Go like the summer of 2016. you know, 5 years later, I'm interviewing for Niantic, and I'm like, wait a minute, like if Ingress is the first game, like there must be something, I guess, like there must be some core there that like was figured out with Ingress. They reskinned it and remade Pokemon
Mhm.
Go, and so like I was trying to understand the game. I wasn't originally on Ingress. I was on a different project for about a year, and when I joined Ingress team, I'm like, okay, like time, like let's learn. Ingress and the Niantic relationship is so interesting, because like the Ingress team all play Ingress like are hardcore. Like if you're in like LA, like you'll see Brian at the top of leaderboards almost always, and the same for the green side. But like I started Ingress for real, like as a dev actually, and so my perspective was like, okay, let me start the tutorial and learn Ingress like from nothing. And playing with some top players, there was at the time I think Brian was a frog, so like our whole like area was basically super green fortress, like super awesome shields, and like I was like level one. I'm like, how do I
How
get
do you
what do
compete?
how do I use my resonators? Yeah. And so it was a bit of a struggle, and I found like really found some uniques, found a little area I could learn, but I kind of struggled to learn it. And then the response was like, here's a PDF you should learn. And for me, at least, that's not how I learn games. I learn when I'm like playing with people. And so in reality, I learned the game when I went for my first walk with Brian. And he's just like, let's like, it's actually like about this interaction. It's about like us getting like, getting burgers after and stuff. Like this game isn't just the thing in the scanner. It's actually the relationships that are created out of this. That's when I really started to understand what makes Ingress awesome. And so yeah, I've been playing for 3 years. I've experienced badge lock and all those fun things. Experienced like the tutorial and been like, I need to make this better. And I have a we can talk about it later, but I have a fun idea for like how to make the tutorial better. But like yeah, having that brand new player experience, I was coming at it like then when I engaged with the community, I was like, hey, you all have been playing probably like 10 more years than I have. Like, show me like the game that you know because I want to help it make it better for you. And that was like actually when I really started to engage with the player community and learned like, Ingress isn't just the game, it's actually like the community surrounding the scanner, which is Ingress. So that's when like things started clicking for me. And I was like, oh wait, Ingress is the best game. It is the best game from Niantic. Well, if you call it a game, that is.
You mentioned obviously you going around doing a few bits. I imagine you've got kind of a favorite medal or you've earned or favorite event you attended if you've been to Anomalies.
Hmm. So I couldn't attend anomalies until I was level 10. And with the fortress situation, I was working towards it. When I finally attended, my first time was at Hakodate Anomaly in Japan. And this was like this and I had such a blast because I just kind of realized like how well from the game dev side, this actually is like part of the game loop. Like you want to basically like the reason you kind of want to stick around is like because you want to go meet all of your friends in some city maybe you haven't been to before and be a tourist together and maybe engage that way. But then in your off time, that's when you're gearing up, or maybe you're engaging on Telegram. And so like I got to see the anomaly from that perspective. But personally, like being the dev was really fun because we were in Japan. Like the anomalies in Japan are like just still way off the hooks, I would say. Like go to the Japan anomalies. Um, but like as a dev, I got to go to like the after parties. I got to give like little toasts, which was really fun. I like signed like 500 bio cards or something. And so like me, usually sitting behind my computer most days, like coding Ingress was a little bit like,
You're
oh
out in the
wait,
wild instead.
yeah, out in the wild. But like the part that I remember from that experience was, well, one, seeing just all the action on the game board, seeing like that 3 hour of anomaly play, but then realizing, oh wait, it's also like it's a weekend, right? You have like you're doing different stuff, you're meeting up with people, uh you're doing mission day stuff, right? And so that like whole experience is to me was like I was almost like witnessing it from like a bird's eye perspective. Because I was working the whole time. I didn't get to play as a player at the time. And so I really enjoy just like, I don't know, the camaraderie of it all. And the Japanese players are just so like welcoming. Japan's an amazing country. It makes me want to go back to Japan, even if there's not an anomaly there right now. But I probably will want to be at the next one. So if I'm not in a different one sooner than that.
I have heard the Japanese English community are like another level, basically, of like expertise and community and all coming together at the big anomalies. So
It's almost as if like Pokemon Go never happened in Japan and like that Ingress community still is like of the same like energy. And that's why I like I it's great. Like I think the goal of like, the Ingress team is like let's get that like level of energy like back elsewhere, everywhere else, right? And so
yeah,
I mean the things, things were cool. Like we I some yeah, I learned like the only Japanese phrase I know is uh, Ingress wo pleishite kurete arigatou gozaimasu, which is thank you for playing Ingress. And you know what? I'll say that to everybody. I don't care if you don't play Ingress. But I said that over 500 times, so I know it really well.
good on till I'm trying to do Japanese and I can know about order green tea and sushi at the minute is about my level.
That'll get you places. But actually speaking of it, like I had a few magical moments. One was we had a like ferry which was going from Aomori, which is like the north big island of Honshu, all to Hakodate. It's about a 4 hour ferry, but it's kind of like this intimate moment where we had maybe 30, 40 Ingress agents. Maybe a few from like China, maybe a few from like some other like Asian areas. And but like we were there as me, Brian, and Masa was mainly doing translation in Japanese. And I, me like first time in Japan, like, oh, I have to take my shoes off and like, things I'm like, trying to absorb as an American as the first time being in Japan. At the same time, I'm like, oh, like there's players who don't speak English or whatever. Like I was in like this is a very international game, and that was all hitting me at once. But my question for the Japanese players, because I'm just curious, like, how many of you have a really fond memory of Ingress that involves you going into the car of a stranger? And Masa translated that. He's like, "What?" And he's like, "Okay, I'll translate it." Every single person raised their hand, and then they're like, "Also boat." Because like we like, and they told me all their stories about going to like this remote island with like a single portal on it, and like, so I mean, like, if you're a boating person, go play Ingress in Japan. But the idea of just like the friendships that can be created out of Ingress, that's universal. And I think that's a very beautiful, beautiful thing about the game.
I know you mentioned obviously you're at least level 10. So previously then that was the kind of level to get to use OPR and Wayfarer nominate new things. Is that something you've done on Ingress?
Oh, I've
And
tried. I try to get Hugh Portals nominated, but the rules I know are difficult, and I guess I don't follow them. But I've gotten a few in my area of that haven't quite been approached. But yeah, my perspective has been Wayfarer stuff. They this is like I don't know. I guess I like the way idea of Wayfarer. I wish they had focused more stuff towards Ingress. I
Mm.
think a lot of it was very Pokemon Go oriented. In fact, like
Yeah.
a little bit too much in my opinion, as and not doesn't reflect the opinion of anyone on Niantic. But yeah, in my opinion, uh, I think that is actually Ingress is kind of made for it a bit, right? Like imagine you can
Yeah.
like have squads or whatever, and like you can group up. Like you could define the groups in the ways that people are already grouping up, like for like shard skirmishes or for anomalies. So like that's kind of the perfect means of that type of application. But like the reality was like Pokemon Go being the flagship product of Niantic Labs,
Mm.
Ingress is like the older
It's
sibling
along
that
for the
like
ride.
has to figure like yeah the older sibling who like is not a huge actor and like has to like still be like the responsible adult. And so like yeah that so that I wish it was a little more balanced because I really saw the benefit of it to a point where I I have some I'll tell you more ideas for like features that I personally wanted to put in, but like I think things like squads would be an amazing feature for Ingress because something like that is just how the way people already play.
How do you mean squads like you'd like kind of like other games where you do for a party and you go off together, that kind of
Yeah,
thing?
pretty much. I mean, like keep it simple, right? Like you know, maybe you get some AP boost or
Mm.
for group dueling with the squad, maybe there's a new medal to prevent badge lock when you group up. Like those kind of features that promote like, you know, getting people together and not making it like a solo game. Like when
Being
things
able to
like
carry a new player with you and that kind of thing.
right, because that's how I learned Ingress, right? So if you have a new player like they're in your squad, you're like, okay, like we'll like carry you, but like you're gonna get all these benefits. Like that doesn't have to be so manual, let's say, you know, maybe instead of having to drop so many items for you, maybe they get some benefit from squatting up with high level players to learn the game. So like there's to me a lot of onboarding benefits for that kind of feature for such a feature. Um, because that's like me learning it from like taking a walk with Brian and a few of the other devs, like what if like, you know, we did a walk with friends and that like you can see them on the map so that, you know, you can all meet up. I think there's a lot of you'd have to be careful with that implementation of that feature because anytime you can like see people on a map, like there's like it gets questionable at that point. But like I would
Yeah.
imagine it's your friends and like you
You
verify
could have a
people
setting to turn it off or whatever, or only show it
exactly.
to friends. Yeah.
Yeah, like opt in as opposed to like, you know, have to opt out, those kinds of things. So um yeah, but yeah, we'll see. Let's hope for that kind of feature in the future.
And like I say, you've mentioned some features you've done. Is there a favorite feature you worked on or contributed
Mm.
to?
Yeah. For me personally, my most fun feature to work on was overclock. And that's because that was the first feature I got to be the feature lead on. So I was kind of growing as a game dev. Like, how do you, one of the other developers, like, you know, coming off Machina was like, here's how you can learn how to be a feature lead. So there's a lot of like, you know, I was learning a lot at the time, but it just was like the most unique feature in terms of like problem set. So like okay, it's using like Niantic's like very new technology at the time, VPS, right?
Yeah.
And like and it's like we were trying to showcase that as part of this feature. It has this like it's literally a 4D object that is like done in math, but it's projected in 3D space, but you'd solve it with, you know, doing a 2D glyph hack. And so like the fact that you've like transcend dimensions literally to like create this like procedural shape and animate it for that matter was a challenge. But in reality, I think the most fun part was the design process, like the game design process we did for it, where we spent like maybe 2 weeks where we like we're really just thinking hard about how do we hack an AR for Ingress? And just speaking about overclock, it originally was called AR hack. And actually, and I know you have questions later about what was it, wormhole? I'll just
Yeah.
sum that up now because we're on the topic. But so
Okay.
AR hack was like the remnants of wormhole. Wormhole was something that I basically, or AR wormhole, I think, was something that
Mm.
was attempted as a feature before I joined the team. So I don't know I can't speak to like how it came about or like what that looked like. But I do know like that was, I think there was some like external like non-Ingress devs and then like some other Niantic folks were like kind of conjointly working. Maybe there's some like working style differences there that made that feature difficult. But Overclock was the first time it was purely Ingress team working on this. And so I think we were able to do a lot more in terms of like velocity and ship the feature with a very small team. So yeah, it was basically three of us working on Overclock. We had a UX design and a client engineer, and we have well, we have also some other folks on the team also touched it, but in terms of like this is like a feature we're working on for
Main
3 months
thing, yeah.
straight. Yeah, yeah. But yeah, that game design process was just like, let's think about what does AR hack look like, knowing we have this kind of like wormhole feature. Like that didn't really work out. Let's try to do it better this time. And so we really thought hard. We spent a week brainstorming ideas. We went through like 150 ideas. We made presentations about what the best ideas were, boil it down. And then that second week, we just rapid prototyped with that small group, right? And we basically built it outside of Ingress. Because when you kind of build in production, things can get messy. Like you maybe add some code that like doesn't
So then
really,
no one knew it was going on in the background if they'd
yeah,
looked at
like why are you
things as
submitting
well.
this? It gets dirty, like so that doesn't help anybody. And so we would we did it like kind of in a fresh Unity project, and we timed ourselves actually less than a week. I think it was 3 or 4 days. We wanted to just have a workable build, and then like see if we from there we could then build out the plan for the production. And because and we ended up going with AR hack as we called it, which was like, hey, English players already know the glyph language, like they already know like
Yeah.
the mental model, like the muscle memory of drawing glyphs or even just knowing what the glyphs are, right? As terms of the sentences. So like you could come in at this from like a skill base and come at this and try to learn from at it from a new player. I will say with Overclock, I think it ended up too hard. It was I will one thing we didn't do with it was I think it basically it goes you don't have a lot of time. The
Yeah.
intent was sort of like to like, and one of the things I tried to put in was like when you stand at the correct perspective that gives you the 2D hack, it's supposed to like lighten up and brighten up.
Okay.
And like for various reasons that works on like, I don't know, 80% of phones and like it was too dim. And so like there are a lot of like factors like that I felt would have made that experience better. But at the end of the day, I think just like not having enough time to complete it really makes it so you have to memorize the sentences, makes the game kind of
Yeah.
hard. But I will like, say that perspective. And the reason why we made it shorter is because we don't want you necessarily like standing around at a portal for like 5 minutes with your phone out, like, with AR. Like that was one of the things we learned from that prototyping process was like actually AR is kind of more fun in little spurts. It's not like something maybe you want to do for just like, like 20 minutes long. It's still very new technology, right? And so like how can we integrate it with the way English players already play? And
Just to make it like you're going past the sport, you can do a quick overclock and carry on. You
right.
don't have to wang around.
And if we want to talk about the rewards of Overclock, our perspective
Mm.
wasn't like, hey, like how much reward should we give Overclock? It was more, how much time can Overclock save you? Because you're doing all four hack like of your hacks at once. And so, if that saves you like I can't even do the simple math, what, 8 minutes? 6 minutes?
Yeah.
Yeah, like you don't have to do that. Like you basically that's a convenience factor and like that's almost like a reward in itself and it promotes
Mm.
like that walk that you want to do to continue rather than having to stop as frequently.
Mm.
And so that's why that's the rationale for a very short overclock. Um, but I will say there is even more difficult version of overclock that I never added to the command. Did I? I don't think I added this. Someone's gonna try it, but I don't believe I added this where you like on the command channel, and doing so would basically like every time you would move around, it would like deform in one of the other dimensions. So like you like not only do you have like you kind of can know the shape, you kind of have to like rock what it is like while you're walking around. It hurt my brain so much to look at that after so long that we ended up just kind of keeping it during the animation. So you can see what it kind of looked like, when it's transitioning between the glyphs. But yeah, doing that like the entire time would hurt my head a little bit, made it hard to play. It's called it like nightmare mode or something.
I know, other than overclock, one of the other features we worked on was the changing of XM colors. So at the minute for June,
Mm,
we've got all the Pride colors. October, we get the Halloween colors up.
mm.
How was that like come about to say rather than white, let's have Pride colors, let's have orange for
Yeah.
Halloween.
Right. So one thing is that at least in terms of coloring, the XM was a feature that existed before I joined the team. However, I will say, so when I joined the team, we had a already had the pride flag. We had the rainbow flag, and like honestly, like this again, this is my opinion, not speaking on the Ingress team, but from my perspective, Ingress team is just like we just want to support that because Ingress team is made up of folks who are part of the trans community, part of the gay community. Like we care about that as developers, so like that's not a question whatsoever on the Ingress team. Who we support and that kind of thing, and so like that's always probably going to be a thing, like just because like it's important to like that stuff's important to show off like support for. Um, and so where I show up, it's like, hey, like we got a rainbow, but like what about the trans flags? We have a couple of developers on the team who are trans. Let's like not just support them, but all also are like the trans players and stuff. Like we love you, right? So it's like we're doing this in a way to like support you. And so I just went in and changed the colors up to make sure it kind of included all the new colors. And uh, so I'm just happy that yeah, the sign that it's still going, I think is cool. I will answer the question about like, I think once was it that we had blue after resistance victory?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay, so what I'll say with that is it's always good to balance it, so make sure we do it for each team. But I will say, technically speaking, we can change the colors, and also technically speaking, when we have a campaign that's faction versus faction, we display who the winning team is. And so in theory, someone on the team could put those two things together and, you know,
Change
change the color for the
it.
winner. Wouldn't that be special? That'd be kind of, things like that. I just think, that's a cool way to show the life of like what's happening with the game. Like showing that like it's almost like more like a sport almost, right? Where it's like, this is not just like a game, but it's like, well, look at me saying that. Yeah, but it's like it's a sport in many ways where like, here's the winning team. Like they get to, gloat for like the next year. They have the trophy, right? Or whatever,
Yeah.
the competition is. It's important to show that off. That's cool. It's a very unique part of Ingress compared to the other Niantic games.
I can't remember the name of the user, but occasionally, whenever the Enlightened win, they ask about rewards and things like Green XM and things like that on the Reddit's
And
obviously never come around.
you know what? And the thing with rewards is like it's a little bit tricky, but Green XM, that's free, baby. I mean, I'm resistant saying that, but in terms of I don't know. There's a couple lines of code I think in there that would make that happen. Wink, wink to someone in particular.
So obviously, we talked about trends winning, like anomalies, things like that. Behind all the anomalies, we have all the lore.
Hmm.
Did you know what was going on with it as a technical artist, or no idea with the storyline? It's long convoluted by this point.
As a technical artist, I had absolutely no idea. I was very curious in it. I read up on the Wikipedia, or the Ingress Wiki, on it. That's where I got my background. Brian gave me the Ingress comic, so I used that for like my introduction. In terms of what's going on in the lore with like 2025 and forward, again, I can't speak to any of that because I'm not over there anymore. But so I do not know. I would love to see some lore. And I think it's a really important part of the game. I think because, and like actually something I learned from the Japanese players, the anomaly was like when the lore is part of the anomaly, like you're like, you're unleashing like a new character, like there's something that happens like at this big event that everyone's meeting up at. Like that's a really cool unveiling and like an ARG element that like I still think is very, there's a lot of possibilities with that still. So I think that would be a good avenue for the Ingress team to pursue in terms of lore.
I just want to get on now. Obviously, we talked about there was the split now, so
Hmm.
Scope the own Pokemon Go monster to now Pikmin Bloom, Campfire, Wayfarer, and
Mhm.
Spatial own Ingress and Peridot. So, when did you kind of learn that news, and how did you feel about how that would change things?
Oh, like I get all my news, IUENG. Actually, no, I'm not kidding. It was like I like woke up on Telegram and like saw that and I was like, uh-oh. and I looked at it and I'm like, where is Ingress? Because I think it just mentioned Pokemon Go and Monster Hunter and Pikmin Blue in the conversation. And so like, people didn't really know where was Ingress going to land, where was like Wayfarer going to land, and like, so I think there's just, at least for me personally, there's a lot of just unknown at the time. But yeah, I think you know, all the games that are going to Scopely are going to have really good support. I think actually, like, the fact that Ingress is still around after the split is evidence that management does want to keep this game alive. Because, like, if they didn't, like, this would be kind of like the exit point.
This would be
Because,
when they could have been done.
right, because if Ingress started Niantic, like, wouldn't it make sense, like, for that to be the end? But it's not because it's still so valuable and important, like, to this, to whatever this mission is with Niantic Spatial. I think that Ingress still like has this role to play in it. I think it'll look a little bit different because I think that was something that plagued, I guess, Niantic as a whole, like throughout its tenure, was like we were half tech company, half games company, and we had people from tech and we had people from games. I come from the game side, and so like I think there was kind of like this like balancing act between those two different types of like or ways of thinking even. And so I think what's going to happen now is on the Scopely side, like games like Pokemon Go, they're going to get more focus on game related features. And I think on the spatial side, we're going to see a lot more stuff that's like map related. Like I'm happy to see, there's this kind of like split with like database stuff because like in my opinion, I agree that Ingress players care about the map more than Pokemon Go
Yeah, so we've
players.
got
Because
Recon coming up at some point instead of
right?
Wayfarer, so
Well, and yeah, those things I don't know anything about Recon, I will say. So I have nothing to say about that, unfortunately. But I am actually excited about it because knowing that Ingress players care about the map, which is so interesting. Because I mean, you can even go back to my AWE talk on YouTube where I talked about overclock, where the way I describe Ingress is it's like, and I think the developers all on this team would agree, like Ingress isn't like it's actually the players own the game. Like the players own Ingress, and like like in a way that's like kind of hard to describe. Like that doesn't necessarily like the way I mean what I mean by that is like it is our game. Like the player
I
they're
get
very
what you
much
mean. It's like a collective thing. If the players say no, we don't want that, it
right,
doesn't happen. And if they say
right.
we would like this, then it's more pushing towards that happening.
Yeah, and but it's like we want this to like be this thing where it's like this back and forth where like I think that like if you make the map better and then like there's more gameplay experiences with a better map, like and you have players who understand that, i.e. Ingress players understand that, like or they tend to like have the understanding being, more technically minded folks compared to the Pigo folks. Not to say that they aren't, but like yeah, I think that having this differentiation, I think I think we're just going to lean into the fact that Ingress isn't a game. Like, it's
Yeah.
not. We're going to explore more of this map stuff. We're gonna. I hope. You know, of course, this is what I think, and I don't know, but I hope that they lean into like the fact that Ingress players are just very passionate and like care about this map. What are things we can make? Like, how do we make the game Ingress better like, using this sort of map? But then also, how does that benefit like other stuff? And I think like that's going to be a thread that Ingress is going to have to, or a needle thread Ingress is going to have to shimmy down. What's there's a phrase in there, but but I have full confidence that Brian could figure it out. Like yeah, in terms of Brian, I think this guy like I've sat him down and asked like Brian, like what do you really want? Like, what's your goal? Like, are you trying to like work at Pokemon Go? Like, are you trying to do this other thing? And he's just like, no, I just love Ingress. Like, I just want Ingress to exist for as long as possible. And so, like, I think like there's a lot of unknowns when I left the company, but I have full confidence that the team there is going to keep it alive. And so, I think like having the folks who are just so passionate about, in this new environment, it might look a little bit different, but like, with the devs and the players both having that sort of mindset, I think things are looking really good.
Try and pick up. I know you said about Ingress players caring about the map more, and so obviously my username was way before Pokemon Go existed. I've been PkmnTrainerJ for 20 years, 25 years
All right.
online. So I obviously started Pokemon Go before I did Ingress and
Okay.
put the same name there. And then I was going around, I had 4 portals, I think, in my area. We've now got some like 170 off the top of my head. So
Let's
I
go.
went around there carrying about the map, nominating these things, and then obviously they all turned into Pokestops as well.
Right.
And then when Pokemon Go got access, they were like, "Oh, Jay, can we nominate this? Can we nominate this?" Like, nope, nope, no good. Like, I've done pretty much all of it. Don't need to worry.
You know, like because that was a factor, my perspective as a game dev is like, how can we make this fun and cool? And so my craziest idea that like an absolutely like is not like the Pokemon Company would never accept this in my opinion, and never heard about it because I'm sure that even the people at Niantic would stop me from saying this. But my idea was like, hey, if there's like a blue portal here, shouldn't there be like water Pokemon around that gym? You know, like how do like and
Yeah.
there's a few folks from Niantic who I think have this philosophy that's like actually like these are just layers to the same kind of like map, the same kind of like digital like whatever it is, like could these layers like interact with each other? Probably not the one of Pokemon, but like what if like Ingress like could interact like you could have a like you turn this portal like you put a certain mod on a portal but that impacts like what a POI looks like in a different game somehow. I think that might help, a lot of Niantic games where it's like they're kind of the same genre. Like it's maybe like some of like you might play maybe just Pokemon Go or like just Ingress, for example. But like if there's reasons to sort of like, do stuff between both games and they impact each other, maybe you could do kind of like fun stuff with location-based games that way.
Oh, definitely a cool idea. I remember there was the event, I think, when Ingress Prime launched, and there was an event in Pokemon Go where you got more of a certain shiny blue Pokemon, more of a certain shiny green Pokemon, and people weren't sure
Yeah.
whether that was kind of
Yeah.
done in the way of certain control areas. But I
It's
don't
like
think it was ever
it
confirmed.
promotes it just promotes both games in my opinion and like kind of like accepts the audience from both like hey like like we also accept Ingress players and Pokemon or vice versa, right? So I think there's good opportunity with it, but I also understand IP law, so I'm not going to bark up that tree.
I know you mentioned obviously like the quads feature you were mentioning, but has there been anything you've seen? I know you mentioned RUENG, any chats you've seen that have helped like identify a bug or push a feature
Hmm.
forward?
So interesting enough, I forget who it was. Was it Fiona? I should apologize because I kind of forget some of their agent names, but I might only know their agent name but not their real name, so I might have to kind of be choosy here. But we had like this like meeting where she's like, "Hey, like let us show you what it's like from the player perspective for an anomaly." And this was like maybe my first month on Ingress, and I'm like, "Awesome! Like I want to like engage with players, and I want to like figure this out together, right?" And so that led to like let's have like a chat with like some of these like UX minded folks, from all these different continents, not just US folks, although there is one person who's US based, but like folks from like Argentina and folks from like UK and like folks from like East shoot Jack, I don't know where you're from, but you're somewhere else. But like like I had all these players and like what I noticed, the first thing I noticed was like, I think we were hungry to be heard. So speaking from the player perspective, hungry to be heard. And for my speaker as the game dev was like, oh wow, like I could just listen and like that's going to do a lot here. But like everything the players were saying, I was basically agreeing with because I'm like, yeah, that does make sense. And so I think there's even some players who sent me like was it like Cat Vinci? How do you say it? She basically sent me a Excel sheet that had like of these like UX bugs on it, and I was like, "This is awesome! Like, let's kind of do it. Like, I want people, I want to see the players like who care about the game just as much as me, like show me they care by being like, here's something that's wrong, or like, and in fact, the inter I it was harder for me to embrace it with my German friends. It varies from country to country. Um, you know, American, UK, I would say rather polite. There's differences there, obviously. You go to the Japanese players, and it's so polite, but it's also very it's very like, hey Alex, like just letting you know, like you're doing awesome. Like it's so wonderful to like that you're doing this dev diary, but hey, there's like something wrong here. Like I don't know if you had time to look into this. No pressure, no rush. And translate it into English. I'm like, oh, it's so friendly. And so I'd get stuff from Twitter over there or Telegram. My German friends, they are so efficient because they're just like, this is broken. Circle. And at first it was hard to hear that as a dev because you're just like, oh, you're just kind of telling me like what's wrong. But in fact, like that was just the initial, and like I've grown to love like some of these friends I've made. But like because that's how the Germans react, where it's just like this is wrong. I was like, wait a minute, that's actually the most efficient way to as a dev to understand what like the task should be. So I almost implore like, hey, instead of like, hey, why is this broken? Do it the German way, where it's like, this item doesn't exist here at this moment. Here's the red circle. Thank you. But like but like that, my point is, at the end of the day, that's just showing love for the game. And like that's, in my personal opinion, as a game developer, is a way I love to engage with players because it's like, hey, I also love the product I'm working on. You love it from this other perspective. And we show that by, engaging this way.
You mentioned a couple of features. Is there any that you've not worked on that you'd like to see get added to Ingress? I know you mentioned the squads thing coming in as something you'd
Squads,
like, but
yeah, squads would be neat. I I mean, some might disagree here, but I personally want to see a key on every hack, or at least maybe some ways to get a key hack or something, just so I can do my link game a little bit better. But I understand there's reasons not for that. I think the thing I wanted to see, there's two things I wanted to see. One was as the new player, as I mentioned before, I was like, tutorial's so important. I wish like the first 2 minutes of Ingress would teach me at least the very basics. And so I think I did write the code on the two recent tutorials we did. Unfortunately, we never implemented this version that was called Rival Agent. And you can kind of think of it like you have like, some character come up and they're like, hey, like you're level you're level 15 or 16, right? And like you have all this power, you have level 8 resonators, you have level 8 bursters. And then like, whatever team you're assigned, the other team starts to encroach. And you kind of have this like feeling of like, oh, we're super powerful and we're gonna like take them down. And so like that feeling of Ingress, that feeling to me is more like Ingress than just like trying to explain like I mean, or be more like ethereal with the lore, for example. I think it's would be cooler to show like what you're doing, like the action that we're doing. And so like it was all simulated. I think like because I think most folks when they open up Ingress for the first time, they don't understand like you need to walk to play this game. That's
yeah.
like almost like a so my idea was like, let's make a portal that's 1 meter outside of their interaction radius so they know they must move across their living room. But things like that. And then like basically like you take them down, you take down the alternate team's portal, but then like you wake up through like a portal and like, some XM is like has trapped you and now you're back at level 1. And like you're just like, oh, they're level 1. But it's okay, because you know what? We're gonna get back to level 16.
Yeah, but you know what you can get for.
And it kind of shows you what like that almost like shows you the end game, a simulated end game. Um, my goal was to make like anomaly style, like, but that would have been kind of chaotic for a new player. So it was just very basic. And then in terms of the other feature, in this one, I I still want to see this. I think so. Being the feature lead on uh, I call them quests, but they are bounties. They are bounties. They are campaigns. We had kind of a plan for all three tabs. So uh, basically, the first tab was the dailies, and you have the dailies, right? Second tab was we called it the event tab, and now that's campaigns, right? Where it's like you have a timer. Do you think of those like, I guess, daily being like runs goes out after a day, events being like goes out after just X amount of time. Then we have the third tab. I do not know what will exist on the third tab, but I'll tell you what I wanted on the third tab. Or if there will be a third tab even, I should say. But what I wanted was, or well, actually not what I wanted, but it was more like this was like some work with me and our UX designer, who I'll shout out later because you should go play their new game. But yeah, with our UX designer, the thought was, okay, so bounties, like they give you rewards, like I don't like you get I don't know, some data points for completing a bounty, right? What if you got like, what if there was a bounty that was in this third tab that you could like highlight or activate, and whenever you activate it, that's the only bounty you're, getting credits for. So you have to be kind of focused. But it's basically like that's where I would introduce story and lore into the scanner because you could have a quest for a bounty that's like, here's an ADA bounty, and you have to like, do whatever, like hack 100 portals. But when you do that, like you're now reputation level 2 with ADA, and you're gonna learn a little bit more about where ADA comes from and like why, why she's how she is. And I think that would be an interesting way to sort of breadcrumb the lore out. But that and so like that's basically a bounty that doesn't have a time, has infinite time associated with it, and then the reward would be like a reputation with one of the characters. And so it was like earning reputation with by doing a specific bounty at a specific time. And so I think that'd just be yeah, that'd be cool. That was going to be the third attempt of the bounties given more time, I'd say.
I think I've seen similar ideas floating around before, as well as like paid bounties. So pay like £5, and then, like you say, get a special story that you can go down. Maybe get a badge at the end of it. Some really hard bounties,
Yeah.
that kind of thing.
Yeah. So with the paid bounties, if that yeah, so players are playing that, right? Or that was part of the Theta campaign, was it?
That's like a battle pass, essentially, isn't it, in the
Yeah.
Plus Data
All right.
campaign?
Yeah, yeah. So okay, so I wrote the game design doc for that feature originally. I think it went through a few changes since then. I would say that my opinion, the kind of ideal way to do it would be like be it more like a battle pass that's tied with the event, not per
Mhm.
bounty per se, but like let's say like maybe some like let's say you could buy it for the event or for the whole campaign, or you buy it for like one of the assignments. Like maybe there's some like way to pick and choose in that sense, but I would say the really most important thing is what is the reward and what's like the motivation for the player. And so from my point of view, um, yeah, like having like if you pay into the pass, like you should get maybe some lore related bounties, or some additional content, right? Because you're willing to, pay and support the game. And so I think so for me, there was two versions of that was like one, the reward is story or lore. The other version of that is some new, like almost unattainable item, like not like a very rare kinetic capsule or something, right? Like a new item that has some additional properties that's only achievable if you kind of like, you play the game and you also pay into it. And kind of the design of paid bounties and kind of the main intent for it was like, you're not just like paying for the items, you're actually like, because you're actually like paying to earn more items. So it actually feels good
Yeah,
because I guess my main sticking point when designing that feature was like, and we can talk about medals and badges all day, but like, we can do cosmetic medals. That's one way to do things in terms of revenue, but I think it's more engaging to like have players feel good about spending money. Like you don't want to pay for the level 8 like bursters because that's kind of feels like pay to win, right? Like or like level 8 items kind of paying just I've just heard I know that's a thing with a lot of players, but like if you earn that by playing Ingress, then it's like yeah, you earned those. That's you have the right
yes.
to them and so like that flipping of the psychology I thought was very important for this feature. So I hope they continue to keep that in mind going
Yeah, I
forward.
know. I know one thing I was kind of hoping with, I hope happens next time, is that if you get like a plus Delta battle pass and I buy that, then I get a plus Delta avatar or some beacons as
Oh yeah,
like exclusive thing for that event. And then
totally.
someone looks back and goes, "Oh, why has that person got a plus Delta avatar?" It's like, "Oh, because they paid into this that many years
Yes.
ago."
And so this was so fascinating because like Ingress players want to see Ingress live just as much as like the devs do. If you're like, hey, I want this, tell Brian how much you're going to pay for it. Just be like, hey, we would pay $15 for this or whatever it is. Like, I, it's so interesting because I think traditionally you'd want like to like undercut if you're the customer because you're like, I'd pay like a penny for this if I could. But in reality, Ingress players are like, no, like we want Ingress to survive. Like let's work
Yeah.
together. And that's almost like, in my opinion, like we have cosmetic medals. That's one thing. You can maybe you have nostalgia and those factors, but like my thinking was like, well, it's mostly that Ingress players want to support the game. So like if we call something like supporter medal or something along those lines, then like that's going to get more people to feel good about the purchase because it's like, yeah, I am supporting the game. And so like other avenues, to help support the game, I think would be good because I not again, I think this was something that was probably too complicated at the time, but like I was like, what about like a Patreon or like, buy me a coffee or something for Ingress, something along those lines. But I can see that being kind of tricky in terms of like payment, but like smart ways for that players to want to support the game that they love and own, in my opinion.
I'm just wondering now how many messages Brian's going to get about like key duplication capsules and very rare kinetic capsules and media capsules and everything now. How
Yeah,
much
I
people
think
wouldn't pay for them.
yeah, yeah, those ones are tricky because like it's basically like you're purchasing like the inventory space is like a one-time purchase. And so that's why things like Battle Pass kind of are like help a little bit more because it's like okay, like it's kind of more guaranteed. And so like I think that's where like that's why the focus is kind of on like this Battle Pass kind of thing. But I think it's it's just stage one, it's milestone one. I think it's gonna be so much more refined, for the rest
Yeah,
by
it's
the
their
end of
first
this
time
year.
round, so
Exactly. So it's like, they're figuring it out and they're refining the cracks. And so, yeah, I would say just give patience to the team, especially because, the split wasn't our choice, obviously. So it's like there's
yeah.
a lot of it's very hectic over there. So like, be patient and I'm just gonna get better. So
I've been doing this podcast now for 100 episodes, a few of those special ones. I think I'm on like 125, like actual episodes off the top of my head.
yeah.
But other team aware of community things like that. I know there's like the Prime Tips podcast, there was the Agent Academy one, there's obviously various Ingress groups and
Mhm.
stuff. How aware are they of all these things?
I would say 100% aware. I think you might be surprised how much Reddit we all still use to this day. I think a few of us use Telegram a lot more than others. But like, I think those are two really good sources. But I will say aware, but at the same time, like with a super limited in terms of like team size, so limited in
Mhm.
resources, it's hard to build time out there. Like you're honestly like more likely to get some Brian time, like go taking down his portal and getting the beer with him after. So if you bring your you bring your microphone, like come to LA and try to get a have a little
I'm,
burger.
I'm hoping he's at Cambridge for Plus Delta. I hope he decides to go to that.
There you go.
So I'm bummed doing there. Right. I've got a few community questions now, if that's
Okay.
okay.
Oh yeah.
I'll do my usual apology that I'll probably get people's names very wrong. So they can correct me if they would like to, and get them right next time. So I'll go first with Arda0413. So they said, what are some of the ideas / plans you had for Ingress that never got added? Were there any controversial moments regarding new features such as overclock?
Hmm.
I think you covered that with the nightmare mode and the
Yes.
long being. So was there any plans you had that never really got added in
I
that you
I
can't
mean
talk about?
speaking about the third tab, I could speak for another hour about that, but I won't. I will say just change it up. I am really excited about bounties that are like location based because there's a lot of like Ingress gameplay that can arise out of that system. Because let's say you're in a specific S2 cell and like you get a bounty, the only like you can get like what kind of gameplay can arise from that? Like I had an idea that was like and I'm sure there's technical reasons we can't do something like this, but it's like, hey, what if there's everyone from this cell gets like, the one bounty, they have to hack like 5 portals or something very simple. But we want that to happen in like at least every S2 cell in the world. And so like that would be a thing where it's like, well, like, oh, actually the global community has to then work together and be like, hey, did you get this like ocean tile? Like, or whatever, like this small island, like Portuguese island, like to me, that's the beauty of Ingress is like that kind of global, like, let's figure this out together, let's solve this. And so I think that kind of gameplay very much could arise, like out of bounties being able to be kind of delivered out, based off where you're located. and that reinforces the Ingress location stuff. So I think there's a lot of cool stuff we can do with location based. What I also wanted to do was like, and Thea wanted to do this too, which was like we have bounties that like basically you could give a player a passcode and then you get rewarded some bounties as a result. I am like if that existed, like you could have like let's say some POC could take that and have a certain number of like redemptions and like if you are like if you signed up you could get some access to some special gear for example and like so like enable the player community to have more like you know reinforce the ways they're already playing but like maybe a way to engage more by using that in that way. I think everyone on Inger's team, including everyone who's still there, is very excited about leaning into those location-based kind of things because they understand how it's important to the game.
Gone through the AR wormhole stuff, so I'll just do Renag Souston's other question, which was about scanner crates. So there was an event where those got announced and they were kind of shown off and then fizzled away. Was there a plan for those? That's something you heard of when you joined the team?
So reading this question, I have never heard of scanner crates. I have seen what I think are scanner crates as a mesh in the game, or at least in the project. I'm not sure if it's in game, but I think like it's you said it was at AWE and Brian gave that
Yeah.
talk.
Yeah, I think
Okay.
so. It was a little slide and someone walks along with a phone and scans a portal. They kind of
Uh-huh.
place something there and then someone goes to pick it up.
Yeah. Okay. So uh-huh. That that became okay. I don't know about Scanner Crate. I challenged Brian to come on the podcast and let everyone know what
You
was
can
the
explain.
idea was Scanner Crates. But what I think that actually that became Overclock. I think probably Scanner Crates was like the benefit or whatever the motivation was to do that action. And we ended up doing that with what was the overclock reward, which, like I said before, wasn't really about like, can we give players 4 times as many rewards? It was like, can we like save them as much time as possible when they hit a portal and like get all the items they want? And so it's more of like a convenience sort of thing.
Next one I've got is from Juggly Nugs. Said, thank you, firstly. We know you play Ingress. What are your favorite things about it? And what would you change? And I think the other ones you've answered. So, do you know how many people are working on Ingress currently? And is there a long-term goal for the game, which I think you've touched on as well?
Yeah. I can't speak to the long-term goals, but I know that short term, I know Brian's making some good long-term goals. And so it's like I just think things have to kind of shift a bit.
Mhm.
So I know I trust they're doing that. I can't speak to that. So when I was impacted, there was about 15-ish folks, and and so it's probably less than that now. And
Mhm.
so and for the unexposed, like it's sometimes it's hard when you look at game dev to be like, that isn't that just like a simple fix or whatever it is, and sometimes it is, but like things that look very simple can actually like take more time than the things that look complicated. And so I think with a small team, like that's where we have to be very like smart about how we, pick and choose which features we work on, which bugs we work on. Is this actually game breaking versus is this like a visual like aspect? Like does the visual impede your gameplay? And figuring out what that line looks like. So I think there might have a little bit more of a challenge figuring that out now. But I think yeah, it's a very small team. Um, everyone on the team's a rock star. I think, sorry, what was the other part of that question? The first part.
Um, what are your favorite things about Ingress and what would you
Ah,
change?
uh-huh. Favorite things about Ingress is absolutely the community aspect because I almost, like I said before, like I almost like I love being part of the game that is Ingress, which almost that isn't always part of the scanner. Like meeting friends who maybe haven't even played the game in 5 years, I find that really interesting. So, I mean, that's kind of the cop-out answer. So let me talk about the scanner. In terms of the scanner, the things I would change are some of the things I guess I mentioned. Like I really wanted to see more lore in the scanner because I think that's a motivating kind of factor. I want to see more progression because I felt, going through like the level 8 loop, I hit level 8 and it was great because it's like, oh, I could do at level 6, I can do level 6 stuff now. Woohoo, I can use these things I've been storing up. And so there's this feeling of progression Then I hit level 9, and I'm like, wait, I have to get two
No,
more
level 9.
badges. Yeah, and I kept getting badge locked, and that kept feeling bad as opposed to good. So I was wanting like there to be this kind of like feeling of progression, even with while keeping badge lock. 'Cause we shouldn't necessarily change how that system works. 'Cause that would mess up a lot of people's and then mess up everything. So like let's find another way to get that feeling of progression, maybe through bounties. Like maybe you now earn reputation with Ada, for example, and like
Yeah.
that's it, and like that enables you to, I don't know, your viruses do more, or so, like, or they, come with more mods, or something like that would be interesting. Um, and so I think there's ways to sort of like, and like I always wanted like there'd be like a reward for that. Like, I don't know, you get, some item that boosts your interaction radius by twice for like 10 minutes or something like that. That's a controversial one, of course. But like, I don't know, like things that just kind of like, expand gameplay, I think would be good rewards for that kind of, you know, like I want to be able to use new items as I'm like playing through the game, not necessarily through leveling up, but also like through like, doing bounty, like quest bounty, doing like lore related or narrative bounties, in my opinion.
I think this person I mentioned before is on Towers questioning about turn the XM green for winning anomalies. So I think you mentioned that's there as a thing if someone pushes the right button. So it does exist if someone wants to do it.
The button needs to the button needs to tell A and B to speak to each other, but yes, it is besides that, the button needs to be pressed. And there are some amazing people on the team who I'm not saying like that's the thing, like they're not going to go be able to just go and do it, whatever. Like
No.
they're so busy with so many other things. I'm sure even more right now, right? But if they want to have some fun, I think it could be a very good beneficial player experience thing that would be very cool to see.
Very cool to see. I do wonder what Contaro would do if it actually happened. So
And then when
we'll
it's
go
a
green.
tie, we have Red Machina XM. No, that'd be hard on the eyes.
Very cool. Well, I did think they could do like red and white for Christmas time, that kind of thing, but
Well,
might be a bit easier.
technically you can replace the gradient color. So like you could have like different, like you could have a blue-green gradient when you're tied. Neutral, yay, everyone's having friends.
Next question. So Godgen said, you came with lots of things players use every day, have reduced nature development, always moving on to the next thing without fixing problems or extending capabilities.
Mm.
If you had the time to go back and revisit various things, what would you want to spend more time on or see happen? And you mentioned obviously the bounty. This is one.
So yeah, this is a multi-part answer. I will say we did go back and update the UI in Overclock. I don't know if anyone knows the original UI in Overclock, but it was not as good as it is now, which I think is okay. But to me, I it, here's my honest answer. I think there's a and this is part of the is Niantic a tech or a game company, but there's two approaches, I think, to how you go out about developing features. One way to do things is you do things like an MVP. You try to answer like a small hypothesis. You try to make as little effort as possible. Can you answer the question you're trying to answer? And, like that is a great approach when you come to like, let's solve this like problem like in tech or whatever it is. But I think you have to change that. My personal opinion is you need to change that perspective a bit when you have a game where you really are competing with the attention of all these other games that have very polished experiences. And so I would have wanted to do more of like maybe have a few more iterations before we release it to players. But I do understand that like it is kind of part of the DNA for Ingress to kind of do it in the way that it does it. In terms of feature that I'd revisit, yeah, I guess just like I said, the third tab could do some cool stuff. Um, some new items. I would add more recipes because I think that the like kinetic capsule and like crap like that is a whole crafting loop that could be done with a little more fun stuff there. So those are kind of the things I was thinking about.
Seen Xan's questions about Recon, I've mentioned. Don't know about that, so we'll skip that one, unfortunately.
Yeah, you tell me about Recon and I'll
Quebec 0212 said for a long time, a year or so, there's a bug that messed up item preview from hacking. Do you know what caused the bug and why it wasn't patched? Is it difficult or easy to fix?
Is that if it's about a year ago, it must have been when the rendering update happened. And I will say every thing and every pixel that exists in the game had to be touched. So like when I missed that, I missed the media inventory screen. Like 'cause I usually looked at media from like the carousel view. So like things like that did get missed, but players were like, would message me and being like, "Oh, I can't see this anymore." And so every time I got those, I kind of would go out of my way to fix that because I was like, well, it's my responsibility. I should fix this. And so it very well could be that. Is it easy to fix? It is for me. And what I will say though, for players, if you're trying to get some of these things fixed, maybe it's something that bothers you, even if it's minor, I would say like I said before, do it like the Germans do. Get a red highlighter and circle the thing that's wrong, explain exactly where it happens and like how much it disrupts your gameplay, and put that on Reddit or Telegram or wherever you want to do it. And that's going to be the way I think that helps the team because it's like, oh, I now understand. I don't have to spend this cognitive energy to try to understand what the problem is because you kind of. And so I I think that kind of stuff would actually be a really good way to help the Ingress team from the player side. And then also give them thumbs
Cool.
up and don't be so mean to them. That's the other thing.
And then a final question I've got is from Dream Hackers asking about will red fields make it to the game and do you know the roadmap for Ingress? Obviously, you wouldn't know the roadmap at the minute, but
I don't know the roadmap at the minute. I can know that Ingress is existing and will continue to exist, but the means I do not know. I will say in terms of red fields, have you seen the Machina profile? There's
I
been
think it's
how
got
many?
two
Two?
or
So
three.
there are red fields.
Hmm.
Like no, like there's blue fields, there's green fields. I programmed in red fields. And so I just don't think anyone's captured it yet. And I my partner, she swears that like we were out playing and she's like, "Why is that red?" And like I didn't get a screen grab of it. But what happened was like effectively what happened is like you have, Machina's trying to find a clean portal to go to, but you have two portals side by side who are both feeding the same, like the third end at the exact same millisecond. And that's
Oh,
what
okay.
creates the field. I don't know if it breaks the game or what happens, but somehow Machina has those. And from like the technical art perspective, I put in the red color and everything. So like it functions just like the green and blue, like links and fields do. So yeah, if someone screen grabs that, you should post it on Reddit for me.
I'm
One,
sure I've seen a screen grab of a red field, but then people
yeah,
went over the authenticity of it. Like, did this actually happen? And
it
I've had
it's at
someone
least
will
happened
repost it
twice.
after this, and then it's turn it
Yeah,
again.
let's get a video because photos are easy to doctor. Get a screen recording, and then we'll have everyone debate it for years after if it really existed or not. I will say it has the capacity to exist. The code is there for it to visualize and appear before the red takes over the world.
I think that's the end of the community questions now. So, as you said, obviously restructuring and stuff, no longer at Niantic. Are you able to share what you're moving on to next, or what you're doing in the meantime?
Yeah, when does this podcast release? Do you know the release date? Because I can tell you
I
after a
would
certain
hope
day.
end of the month.
Okay, I cannot say just yet, but I will be able to say a week after. I have found it my next gig. It is in the video game industry. I will say it is another competitive team-based game, and I'm moving into management for the first time. And so that's going to be a new thing for me to learn. But yeah, the thing I'm taking from Ingress, right, as like, what did I, learn from the game? Where can I spread that? It's kind of twofold. One is like I had so much opportunity to like be this like leader on all these features that I can sort of like take that knowledge and then now be a manager at this new place. And hopefully enable teams to like do really cool work. I a few I can't give away the game or the place, but I will say some of my Ingress friends are streamers of this game. So like that in of itself is going to be really fun. Maybe we'll do a stream together for fun. Um, but yeah, like I said, like I just had a lot of opportunity to learn on Ingress. So I'm going to be able to do some of the more game production, like here's how you like lead features, here's how you can like, motivate people on your team. However, after that, I think I have my long-term strategy. Honestly, something did happen with me where like it clicked for me, especially after the Hakodate anomaly, where like I really understood Ingress, where I'm like, oh, none of the Niantic games did like actually were able to capture what Ingress had. Like they sort of were close to it, but I don't know if like there's Pokemon Go players all getting like beers after like some community day thing. Like it's everyone's very like maybe it's transactional like interactions between groups, but like there's this like community unification thing happening with Ingress because there's this competitive like, oh, we're blue team, you're green team. But like what I saw was like there's a conference room full of like the green people and a conference room full of the blue people, and like having so much energy and passion like for your group and like for your team, like that lends to the really strong community, I think, because it's like like you get very into it. Like it's almost like a sport, like I said. But then, yeah, you just have people who really care about it. And I think that's like, I mean, to me, that's the reason Ingress exists and will continue to exist is like, I mean, everything Niantic threw at Ingress over the time, like, despite everything, like the community
Ingress still
still
kicking.
persists. It is still kicking and it still has so many players. And like, it's so insane to me that like, so to me, like there's some magic there. And with that magic, like I do think the Ingress team is gonna like try to work with that still. They're gonna do what they can with Ingress. But I do think more games like Ingress should exist. Not Ingress exactly, let's say, but like what about other sports or like location-based games that, are mobile phone games that like, exploring what does that game look like when you go out for like, a big event versus like a beer with your friends versus what is that like at home? I do think Niantic dropped the ball with not investing in the game design aspects of location-based games.
Mhm.
But like, and then everyone who kind of, not everyone, most of the people that would go through Niantic, from my, perspective as an employee, would go because of the Pokemon Go, right? Like, oh, I want to be a developer in Pokemon Go. And I gotta say, I even had that perspective at first because I just didn't know Ingress. And then I was on the team and I joined the community and I like saw actually like, no, this is something that's like persistent that like it's real like I think Setsudo said it in like one of the before, but he's like, Ingress is the heart and soul of Niantic. And honestly, it's gonna be the heart and soul of Niantic Spatial. But like what he meant by that is like actually this is the most impactful game because of the communities it built. It's the only game where the game loop actually like you have OPSEC, you have like it benefits your team to bring others into the game, right? And like all that like works together in a way that promotes community. And I think like I wouldn't even call an Ingress a location-based game. I think that term extends to games like Pokemon and Monster Hunter and Dragon Quest Walk and those kind of games, but Ingress is a community-based game. And like those games aren't necessarily always walking games, but like those games usually always work. And so like I really do challenge the Ingress team to like everyone on the team knows the community is the most important thing. I know it might not always look or feel like it, but that is what everyone believes. And I really, really hope that they continue to focus on ways to help the community, even if it's making green XM when they if they win a competition, I will say. I'm not biased against blue or anything, or but go Smurfs. But yeah, no, my
I
next
think
role is really exciting, and I really in the future I would want to build a game where I'd work alongside Ingress players to make some new community-based, location-based game. And I think only Ingress players understand what are the things that make it tick. So I want to like that's why I'm so fascinated from all Ingress players. I want you to all tell me what you love about this game. So you can bother me on Telegram and just let me know what you love about Ingress. I will be so happy to hear it. I can't fix your bugs for you anymore, but I can hear you complain about them if you want.
I think that's about all that I've got. So for wrap up, anything you want to say to the Ingress players apart from, like I said, they can all come book you on
Yeah.
Telegram.
I mean, I guess I said it on my LinkedIn or in my Twitter page in Japanese, but I'll say it here. I cannot thank you, Ingress players, enough because I genuinely learned like actually when I was joining Niantic, I thought I was going to be like part of a tech company. I was going to go work at like Apple or like Meta. I genuinely just found a passion for game development and also like the community because I'm like, dude, like I'm making all my friends with the players. Like this is I feel happy because like seeing the impact, like even it's a minor visual change, like, hey, thanks for fixing that. Like, and I'll come back to like, obviously all the players I know online, but like when I was in Hakodate, there was one Japanese player, did not know any English, but like I was 100% the only white person in the room of like thousands of people. And so he comes up and he's like, "Oh, you're Ingress team." I'm like, "Yeah, yeah, nice to meet you. I'm Alex." And he's the only phrase he knew in English, but he's just like, "Ingress makes me happy." And he was just like shaking my hand and bowing like as hard as he could. And I was just like, "Oh my gosh, like thank you so much. Like it makes me happy to see you so happy." And like that felt my heart was so much joy. And like then I started to see that with, that is how everyone is feeling about the people who love Ingress and still play Ingress feel that way about the game. And the fact that the players allow me to share in that with them, even being part of Niantic, being a new player, the players welcomed me. And then because they welcomed me, I then found out what my passion was. And so I genuinely want to thank the players for like kind of teaching me who I am in some way. And that's why like I don't know, remain close. Like a lot of my close friends now are just English players, like both sides, you know. In this case, both sides are I am blue, but green aren't all bad. There's some cool green people. At least two. I know, there's more.
Before that, so I think that's all I've got now. So
Okay.
thank you again for joining us, Alex. I'll move the rest of you on to the rest of the episode now. Thank you again to Alex for taking time out of his busy day to come and chat with me and talk about Ingress and all the things he still enjoys about it. That's all I've really got for this week's episode. I just want to take a bit at the end to thank you all for listening to 100 episodes of Ingress Insights. Back when I started, I thought I'd get maybe 2 or 3 people listen, but we're now well on the way to over 10,000 players in general, and I get a decent amount of listens on every single episode, so thank you very much for that. There's a few things I'd planned to do for this episode that I've not been able to, so they'll go on the back burner for future episodes, maybe like 125, 150. But as always, if there's anything you want to hear about, let me know. And then next time we're covering presumably the plus Delta global op that will be happening and going through any of the details you've had come from the Ingress team in that time. Thanks again for listening, agents. Happy hacking. I'll get you to the outro now. Sorry, correcting myself. I won't get to the outro quite yet. What I'm going to do as well is I'll put Alex's interview in a separate episode. So if you just want to listen to that without all the plus Delta news in the future, you can do that. So I'll release that at some point after this episode as its own separate thing. Okay, that's it. Bye. Thank you, agents, for listening to the latest episode of the Ingress Insights podcast. If you'd like to help the podcast out, you can do that in a few ways. So first of all, rating the podcast on the podcast service you're listening to is always a great help, as well as leaving any comments on YouTube or Spotify if you're able to do that if you're listening on those channels. Ingress Insights also has a merch store over at tpublic.com/user/ingress-insights, where you can pick up badges and pins and t-shirts with the Ingress Insights logo on, and a few other little bits. There's also the Ko-fi store page, which has previous episodes of the podcast if you want to download those. They'll be out in batches over the next few months. You can also follow us on social media. So the main one we use is Instagram, which is under the name ingress.insights. And we also have a Blue Sky and a Threads, which you can find linked on the show notes to follow on there. If you have any feedback or episodes you'd like to see, or bonus episodes, things you want to cover, or you want to come on and chat about your experience playing Ingress, do let me know. You can contact us via email as well. And the email address is just ingressinsights@gmail.com. So you can send us anything there, voice messages, things you want me to discuss in future episodes, or anything you think I've missed and need to cover next time. Thank you again for listening, agents. Hope you have a great day and happy hacking.
Intel package transferred.